this is what the hell is this double bill? Because I don't think either of these films could survive on their own as a single bill extravaganza or anything. So it's Vertical Limit and Everest. Two, what the hell is this films? One, a very respected, quite well reviewed film that is utter trash, and one, a film that was viewed instantly as trash, rightly so. But I would much rather watch the trashy one than the respectful one. But they're both, what the hell is this film? They're both like, wow, you messed up bad films. I'll start with Everest actually, because Everest is the respectable one. I mean, Vertical Limit is much more fun and stupid. But Everest is based on historical fact. But it falls into the trap of climbing films being, if it's not a documentary, they're going to be cheesy as hell. I mean, the best climbing film is Cliffhanger, which is pure cheese, 100% pure cheese, and so enjoyable. Because the big problem with mountaineering films is you have to explain so much that's there's so much information about how the human body gets affected by how high you are, the pressure on the body, then the air temperature, how you can breathe at a certain height as a human being. All that stuff has to be explained, and usually explained in a cheesy way, because Hollywood cannot hire actors who actually look like working class people. It's a big problem, and it really comes across here, because this is a film that took place, it was mountaineering, a working class type of job, really. Mountaineers do not make lots of money. Some of them live in their cars for much of the year as they go from mountain to mountain to do the climbs. They get sponsorships for certain climbs, but they're not rich people usually. And they're dedicated to their craft that no one understands. So there's a bit of craziness to it. And there's a bit of dedication to something, which is something actors cannot project. Because has been one or two emotions in a big mainstream film that costs a lot of money. So in this film, they're taking the idea of climbing Everest and this tragic day that it takes place. And you have to watch these people go to Everest, do a month of training, and do the climb that's turned out to be tragic. Would have been fine if you had a 70s where we freaking film, we have huge hire actors who looked ugly and, were really tough and could really do it. But this tragedy took place in the 90s, which we were well into the characters only have one emotion type of filmmaking for big budget blockbusters. And it's shot about 2014 or something like that. And they've all looked like actors. Even Jake Gyllenhaal is one of the supporting parts. He turns up for 20 minutes in the film, spread out through the film. So he's advertising the film a lot more than he actually is. You've got Jason Clarke has a lead character who doesn't quite work. Even though he's an actor I like, he doesn't quite work as his character. Because he's a guy who takes people up Everest and is a professional climber. So obviously there's a nutcase element to him. There's also a business side of trying to make a living to him. And that doesn't really come across. It's just someone who's a nice guy, and it's I don't get this guy. I'm supposed to keep this guy, I don't get him. And you don't get the Jake Gyllenhaal character who's the more adventurous one. He just seems really too adventurous and not very smart. Which a climber wouldn't be. A climber would be really careful about how he makes sure he lives to the next day. And this character just seems broad, really broad. And a lot of the mountaineer characters in this feel very broad. I mean, everybody just feels like they've got one thing to play. The only person who really comes through it all is Josh Brolin, who's plays this conservative guy who is a mountain climber because he finds life depressing otherwise. And suddenly that's like so much more interesting than anything else in the film. And his bond with John Hawkes, who's this other guy who's a postman, who's a really working class guy, is the only thing that's human in this film. Everything else just feels phoned in. This bond actually feels like it's right, but suddenly it's because two actors who are good actors get a couple of scenes together. But that's the only good thing in the film. Everything else just feels this Hollywood broad thing of you've got one emotion, that's all you can portray. And it's just so annoying. You've all these actors meant to play from like New Zealand or Australia, but they're British actors. So you've got Keira Knightley as this weird accent, and you just feel in the performance she's actually focused on the accent because she's getting given no lines that are worth her damn. And it's why was she hired for this film? Another actor I like, but it's like, why are they there? Why are they in this film? So you've got all these scenes with these people talking to each other, and they're just these bland figures, and you're meant to care because they're meant to be real people, but they're not because they've been blindsided out to be nothing. Like you don't get the circumstances of their lives through any dialogue or through the way it's shot or the way it's acted. They feel as if they're just parts in this big game of this narrative, rather than this is their reality. Let's set up the first 20 minutes of this is their reality, and then we'll move from there. You'll get a tragedy. You don't get that because they don't spend any time on their reality. They spend a lot of time explaining stuff that's the complication they have to deal with, but it's so much exposition and it doesn't feel like it's people doing it. It's just people talking to each other, actors talking to each other, rather than working on the nuances of the characters, shooting in a way that makes them feel like people rather than actors on a stage or on a location. And it's just like feels so fake the whole time. So by the time you get to the tragedy, you don't really feel the tragedy because it's just actors and you know they're going to sit up and then do the take. Nothing feels right. For me, this is just like the ultimate example of a true life story done terribly. Because, yeah, the scenery is lovely, but whatever they're doing doesn't feel right. I mean, there's another character who's really good in it, which is the Jake Gyllenhaal's second command, who's basically a climber, and he's no sentimentality about stuff, and he's very realistic, and it's like, that's what you need a lot more of, that kind of character. A bunch more characters like that in there that felt real. Even the people who were the aides, who came from the area of the aides, they felt very Hollywoodized because they just seem to have one thing, or they're fighting each other because they don't like each other, and it's like, well, why not? And they just feel like they're being told to be as broad as possible. And you just feel the whole film just being broad without reason. And until you get to the tragedy, there's nothing there. Emily Watson plays the person in charge of the camp for Jason Clarke's character company. And she's putting on a foreign accent, and you know she's British, and the accent's not that great, and it's just like, it takes you out instantly. Sam Worthington turns up as another guy who's helping him out and who's close to the characters, but it's like, okay, he's from Avatar, why is he here? Why not hire someone who's unknown that would have actually felt more realistic? And the whole film's like that. It's that all these actors just look like they're pulled in from a big movie. And why not hire someone who was more of a character actor who you might not have seen anywhere before? That's what the film needed, but because it's a big budget, it needed to have these actors in there, and none of the actors look like the characters they're meant to play. It's kind of like Perfect Storm, that same problem. In the 90s, where George Clooney's meant to be a fisherman, and you're like, no. And it's the whole film, that film just felt sentimental and nonsense. You can through all these scenes where they're meant to see them being good at their jobs or bad at their jobs, and it's like Josh Clooney and Mark Wahlberg. That's the same thing in this film. It's just like these actors do not feel like their jobs. They don't feel anything like their jobs. If you've actually watched documentaries on Mountaineering, they look really fake. They look like... Mountaineer people tend to be much more direct in this. They don't tend to say this much in this way. Everything feels like it's been engineered to make you more sympathetic to people, to dumb it down for people. And to me, it just comes across as utterly fake, and nothing I can see is moving at all. Even a tragedy like this, it just feels like you ever watch a Hollywood movie. Because it's like if you actually looked at anything to do with mountaineering, this just feels fake. It's like begging people to like it. So that was What the Hell Is This? I'm sure not many people agree with me in that one, but that was bloody awful. The film. I've watched it twice, trying to really like it, and both times it's like, this feels fake. The city was lovely, but it feels fake. And it's like, why does every mountaineering film feel cheesy? It's because of the actors who make it feel cheesy because they're given nothing realistic. Now we get to Vertical Limit, where the fact that it's all cheesy is actually part of the joy. Because it's awful, but wonderful. I've watched this film about 4 times since it's been released. I enjoy the hell out of this film. It's so stupid. It's basically a mountaineering version of Wages of Fear, but done. Imagine having Wages of Fear where you cast Chris O'Donnell as the rugged lead and watch his bland face try to act. And that's Vertical Limit. It's really cheesy. It's directed by Martin Campbell, who is a director who goes up and down, crazy. I've got a theory about him is if he's with a strong producer, the film turns out good. And if he's with a producer that isn't that strong, the film turns out meh. Because if you look at it, he's done the Bond films. The 2 Bond films, GoldenEye and Casino Royale, are 2 of the best Bond films. He's really good at the Bond films because he's producers who stay on him. He did Mask of Zorro, which is terrific. And he followed Mask of Zorro with this. He's also done Green Lantern. He's done a bunch of other films that have been a bit bland. It's like, he seems to need, like, Mask of Zorro had Spielberg as a producer, keeping him on target. And this one had no one beyond Martin Campbell, and the melodrama is insane. So he basically starts off with one of the funniest scenes in film history. Basically, they're climbing, these 2 people, Chris O'Donnell and his sister, played by Robin Tunney, are climbing this mountain with their dad, the dear old hippie dad. They're making jokes as they're climbing a mountain. I mean, it could relax me, maybe an odd joke, but they're trying to banter badly. Until a tragedy occurs and the dad dies because Chris O'Donnell has to cut the line, otherwise he'll drag everyone down. And it should be a good scene, but the special effects are terrible. They're obviously on a soundstage with a green screen behind them. And there's a hilarious bit where the camera zooms in on Chris O'Donnell trying to act as if he has to decide whether to cut the rope or not. And he's good. It's really weird. You know, when you're actually thinking he wasn't so bad in Batman and Robin, it's a bad sign. You know, and then suddenly the body just collapses to the ground after that. It's hilarious. Then they go to the mountains, where Robin Tunney is now a mountaineer, and Chris O'Donnell walks the mountains, but is not climbing mountains anymore for some reason. He's shooting animals in the mountains, but doesn't climb mountains. Doesn't make any sense. Nothing in this film makes sense. So they go to the mountain thing, and there's all these cliches of mountaineering, and Bill Paxton's a big mountaineer who's also a Richard Branson-like entrepreneur who is going to climb the mountain. He's had a mountain experience in the past, went wrong. He's going to try again. Scott Glenn is the guy who's out to get him because his wife was the leader of the first expedition. She died, and only Bill Paxton survived. And he knows something didn't work out. Now, this sounds like as if, okay, we have Chris O'Donnell in charge of this film. It's not going to be good, but at least Bill Paxton as a villain and Scott Glenn, it must have something going for it. And it's got nitroglycerin, climbing nitroglycerin up a mountain, doing a Wages of Fear thing. It must have something good going. It has cheese. It has lots of cheese. Thankfully. It's so cheesy that the fact that Chris O'Donnell is the lead actually makes it perfect. Because every reaction he has is wrong. He's terrible in this film, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Because he's so bad. You know, it's just so bad. But at least it's not bland like in Everest. It's just bad. And it's been better when he's with Scott Glenn, because Scott Glenn is so good. And he's in a much better film in his head. That's so much better in this film. And Bill Paxton is enjoying playing a villain. he's just having a blast. He doesn't care what any other films on a person's doing. He's just having a blast playing his villain. So anytime Scott Glenn or Bill Paxton in it, it's going to be cheesy fun because they're in this cheese fest and they're just enjoying themselves, and no one else is worthwhile. Your Ben Mendelsohn turn up as this cliched thrill seeker with his brother, and he's very young in this film, much younger than you've ever seen him before, and he's fun too. You've got all these cliches of all these people bonding during the climb, because when the climb goes wrong and Bill Paxton and Robert Tunney's trapped up to the top of the mountain and they all have to go up, you've got all these different people from the locals, from Nepal area. I can't remember what mountain it is actually, but it's a local. It's Pakistani area, and the locals going up. You've got some white guys going up, some Australians going up, and they're all learning to trust each other and bond with each other, and deal with each other, and it's hilariously cheesy. And you've got all the nitro stuff going on as well, as the nitro is very unstable and have to climb and have to be very careful. And it can blow up at any second, which should be real tension and blah 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 blah. And it usually ends in cheese fest stuff, which I have a blast with. Pun intentional, that one. Yeah, because there's lots of blown up in this film. And it's hilarious, and it's totally cheesy, and if they're doing these things swinging along the lines. And the one thing that both films are absolutely terrible at, right, is passage of time. Both films have terrible passage of time when they're just, because Mountaineering takes a long time to do anything. You have to go from night to day to night to day a lot. And it takes place over like 20 minutes of screen time. And neither film has any clue how to show that and make it feel like it's something that affects people. It's terribly done. But in Vertical Limit, it's hilariously terribly done because all the acting's so cheesy. I mean, in the cave with Robert Tunney and Bill Paxton's this other guy, played by someone from the X-Files, who's dying, and should they give him this stuff, they clear out his lungs, or should they not keep it for themselves? And all this melodrama, and it's terribly done, and it's so over the top. And Bill Paxton's being a complete coward, which is great, because he's great at being a coward. And he really runs with it. And it's total cheese fest, but it's great. You've got Scott Glenn glowering a lot, and there's people running along all these mountains and stuff like that, and breaking fingers and blowing up, and it's so nonsense. And the funny thing is, they get them to get to the top of the mountain, save Robin Tunney, Bill Paxton dies, and then it's like, okay, she's almost dead. How do you get back down the mountain? They never tell you that. Not once they even suggest there's a way to get back down the mountain. Like, it's just weird. The whole plot feels like, they'll be dead. They're dead. You know, they have to go and do this rescue thing, and then at the end of it, it's like, well, she's probably still going to die. You probably took way too long to get there. And there's a whole brilliant thing. And both films have a helicopter because of the pressure and the wind. They can't land properly. And the Everest, it's much more traditionally normal. In Vertical Limit, they have to people jump onto the cliff, a size cliff bit to get there, and it's ridiculous. It's insane, and it's wonderfully stupid. And the rotors are going all over the place and almost decapitating people, and it's just wonderfully bad. I had a blast with that. The Vertical Limit is just so stupid. It's so much fun. And it has one of my favourite dumb lines in it. Is like one guy goes at one point, "Let's strap on a nitro," and he's like, as if that's a normal thing anyone would ever say. Vertical Limit is a blast if you like bad movies, because everything in this is bad. There's nothing good here. You'll notice a lot of actors in the background. You notice from other stuff. You have terrible leads. You have two character actors tuning every bit of scenery they can. You know, nothing works like at all. It's a terrific bad movie, and Everest is just a boring, dull movie. So I'd give me Vertical Limit any time. But both of them, none of them are good. But I'm warning you how bad Everest is. Everest is the pitiful example of why a biopic stuff can be deadly, because context of character is so important in these kind of films. If you get it wrong, you're going to keep missing Wilder and Wilder and Wilder all the way. And this film does that and has so many scenes of people talking absolute nonsense as if they're very serious scenes, and he just makes actors try to act each other and speaking with foreign accents, and Oscar bait material, as this film could be called. Well, the other one is even further but wonderfully extreme. Vertigo Limit is wonderfully dumb. So I hope you enjoyed this. What the hell is this? I'll be back soon with some stuff, but that's me for now. So I'll see you later.